What if the most powerful way to influence others is by saying nothing at all? This might sound counterintuitive in a world that often equates influence with charisma, persuasion, and words. But the ancient Stoics understood something profound. True influence doesn't always come from what we say, it comes from who we are. Think about Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who led an empire not through grand speeches, but through quiet integrity. Or Epictetus, the former slave who taught that our presence and inner strength can speak louder than any argument. These Stoic masters knew that silence, when wielded with purpose, could be more compelling than words. In this video, we'll explore how Stoic principles can help you master the art of silent influence. We'll uncover how presence, detachment, and inner strength can shape the way others perceive and respond to you, without you ever needing to raise your voice. As Seneca once said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. But what if living with quiet purpose could also be an act of influence? That's what we're diving into today. So, if you've ever felt like you're working too hard to convince or persuade others, this might just change the way you approach influence altogether. Stoics believed that true power lies in how you show up, not what you say. This idea of presence being fully grounded in the moment is one of the most subtle yet profound tools of silent influence. Think about it. When someone walks into a room radiating calm and focus, they don't need to announce their authority or demand attention. Their presence alone speaks volumes. Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most renowned Stoic thinkers, put it simply: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. In other words, the ability to remain composed and fully present, even in chaos, is a form of strength that commands respect and inspires others. This principle isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical. Take, for example, a leader navigating a crisis. Imagine a CEO addressing their team during a company-wide upheaval. They don't shout or panic. Instead, they stand with quiet assurance, listening intently and responding thoughtfully. Their presence reassures the room, not because of what they say, but because of how they embody calm control. This is the power of presence. It doesn't persuade through words, but through the unspoken confidence it conveys. But how often do we truly show up in this way? In our fast-paced, distraction-filled world, it's easy to be physically present while mentally scattered. The Stoics remind us that being fully engaged in the moment is not just a skill but a discipline. It's about training your mind to focus on what's in front of you, rather than being pulled in a dozen directions. And here's the thing, when you master this, people notice. They sense your clarity and stability, and that in itself becomes a form of influence. So here's a question to ponder. In your own life, how often are you truly present in your interactions? Are you fully there, listening and engaging, or are you half-focused, thinking about the next task or scrolling through notifications? The Stoics challenge us to consider how much more effective we could be, not just as leaders, but as friends, partners, and colleagues, if we simply showed up with our full attention. After all, silent influence begins with the power of presence. What if letting go of control is the key to gaining it? At first, this might sound counterintuitive, but it's a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. The Stoics believed that true power lies not in controlling outcomes, but in mastering how we respond to them. By detaching ourselves from the results, we free our minds from anxiety and open the door to more effective action. This isn't about giving up or being passive. It's about shifting our focus to what we can control: our effort, our choices, and our mindset. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, put it simply: some things are within our power while others are not. He reminds us to direct our energy toward what's in our control and let go of the rest. Think about it. How often do we waste time worrying about outcomes that are ultimately beyond our influence? The weather, other people's opinions, or even the final result of a project, none of these are fully within our grasp. What we can control is how we prepare, how we act, and how we adapt when things don't go as planned. To bring this idea to life, consider the story of a young entrepreneur who launched a startup. Instead of obsessing over whether the business would succeed or fail, she focused on doing the best work she could, perfecting her product, connecting with customers, and solving problems as they arose. By detaching from the outcome, she reduced her stress and stayed adaptable, which ultimately led to her success. Her mindset wasn't, "What if this doesn't work?" but rather, "What can I do right now to make this better?" That shift in focus made all the difference. So, where in your life might you be clinging too tightly to a specific result? Is it in your career, your relationships, or even your personal goals? Take a moment to reflect on how you might approach these areas differently if you focused less on the outcome and more on the process. By doing so, you might find that letting go of control actually gives you more influence, not just over the situation, but over your own peace of mind. Listening is not just hearing, it's understanding without judgment. For the Stoics, active listening was a cornerstone of their philosophy, a way to cultivate wisdom and build meaningful connections. Think about it, when you truly listen, you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. You're absorbing, reflecting, and showing respect for the other person's perspective. This kind of deep listening is a subtle yet powerful form of silent influence. It doesn't demand attention, it earns it. Seneca once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't just a clever observation, it's a practical guide for life. When you prioritize listening, you create space for others to feel heard and valued. And in that space, trust grows. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel understood. And this is where the Stoic art of listening becomes a tool for influence. It's not about manipulation, it's about connection. Consider the example of a leader who mastered this skill, someone like Marcus Aurelius. As a Roman emperor, he could have easily dominated every conversation, but instead he chose to listen. By doing so, he gained the respect of his advisors, soldiers, and even his critics. His ability to listen without judgment allowed him to make decisions rooted in wisdom rather than ego. This is the essence of Stoic leadership, influence through understanding, not domination. So, how often do you truly listen in your own conversations? Not just to the words, but to the emotions, the intentions, and the unspoken truths behind them. Active listening requires patience and presence, but the rewards are immense. It's a practice that can transform not only your relationships, but also the way you navigate the world. Start small next time someone speaks. Resist the urge to interrupt or plan your response. Just listen. You might be surprised by what you learn. Emotions are powerful, but mastering them is even more so. For the Stoics, emotional control wasn't about suppressing feelings. It was about understanding them, channeling them wisely, and ultimately using that mastery to influence others in subtle yet profound ways. When you remain unshaken by external events, you project a sense of calm and authority that others naturally gravitate toward. This isn't manipulation, it's leadership through presence. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most renowned figures, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This idea is at the heart of emotional mastery. It's not about controlling what happens to you, but about how you choose to respond. When you react with composure, even in the face of chaos, people notice. They begin to trust your judgment, rely on your stability, and in turn are more likely to follow your lead. Take, for example, a story about a CEO navigating a company-wide crisis. While everyone around her panicked, she remained calm, methodically assessing the situation and making clear, rational decisions. Her emotional steadiness didn't just diffuse the tension, it inspired her team to stay focused and work together toward a solution. Her influence wasn't loud or forceful, it was quiet, steady, and deeply effective. This principle applies to everyday life too. Think about the last time you were in a heated conversation. Did reacting emotionally help you get your point across, or did it escalate the situation? The Stoics would argue that by staying centered, you create space for clearer communication and more meaningful connections. So, here's a question to reflect on. Are there moments in your life where your emotions might be holding you back from influencing others positively? What would it look like to approach those situations with a little more stoic calm? By mastering your emotions, you not only gain control over your own life, but also become a beacon of stability for those around you. And that, in itself, is a form of silent influence that can shape outcomes far beyond what words alone could achieve. Actions speak louder than words, and Stoics knew this well. They understood that true influence doesn't come from grand speeches or forceful persuasion. It flows naturally from the way we live our lives. For the Stoics, the most powerful way to inspire others was through consistent, principled action. When our behavior aligns with our deepest values, it becomes a silent yet undeniable force that others can't help but notice and respect. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. In other words, don't just talk about virtue, integrity, or resilience, embody them. When you do, your actions become a mirror, reflecting the kind of person you aspire to be. And here's the remarkable thing: people are drawn to that kind of authenticity. They may not always articulate it, but they instinctively recognize someone who lives by their principles, and they're inspired to follow suit. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. As a Roman emperor, he could have relied on his authority to command obedience, but instead he chose to lead by example. He practiced self-discipline, fairness, and humility, even in the face of immense power. His people didn't just obey him out of fear, they respected him because they saw him living the virtues he preached. His actions spoke volumes, and his influence endured long after his reign. This principle isn't just for emperors or philosophers, it's for all of us. Think about your own life for a moment. When was the last time someone's actions inspired you? Maybe it was a friend who stayed calm under pressure, a colleague who handled a difficult situation with grace, or even a stranger who showed kindness without expecting anything in return. Those moments stick with us because they're rare and powerful. Now consider this: how do your own actions align with your values? Are you living in a way that inspires others, or are there areas where your words and deeds don't quite match up? The Stoics remind us that true influence begins with self-awareness. By aligning our actions with our principles, we not only become better versions of ourselves, we also create ripples that can positively impact those around us. So, the next time you're tempted to tell someone how they should act, pause for a moment. Instead of speaking, let your actions do the talking. Show them what it means to live with integrity, compassion, and resilience. Because when you lead by example, you're not just influencing others, you're leaving a legacy that speaks for itself. Patience is not passive, it's a deliberate choice to wait for the right moment. Think about it: when you rush into decisions or push too hard for immediate results, you risk losing sight of the bigger picture. But when you embrace patience, you're not simply standing still. You're actively preparing, observing, and positioning yourself for when the time is right. This is where patience becomes a silent yet powerful tool for influence. It's not about inaction, it's about intentional action at the right time. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca once wrote, "Time heals what reason cannot." What he's pointing to here is the idea that some things simply cannot be forced. By waiting with purpose, you show confidence in your ability to navigate uncertainty and trust in the natural order of things. This kind of patience isn't weakness, it's strength. It's a demonstration of strategic thinking where you're willing to let events unfold rather than trying to control every outcome. Consider the story of Abraham Lincoln, who faced countless setbacks before becoming one of the most influential leaders in history. Early in his career, he lost multiple elections and endured personal and professional failures. Yet, instead of giving up or lashing out, he remained patient, learning from each experience and refining his approach. His patience wasn't just about waiting, it was about preparing himself to seize the right opportunities when they finally came. So, how can you apply this in your own life? Think about a situation where you felt the urge to rush, whether it's in a conversation, a project, or even a personal goal. What would it look like to step back, observe, and wait for the right moment to act? Patience isn't just about time, it's about trust. Trust in your preparation, trust in the process, and trust that the right moment will come. Take a moment to reflect. Where in your life could you practice more patience? Is there an area where slowing down might actually help you move forward more effectively? Sometimes the most powerful way to influence others and yourself is to simply wait, watch, and act when the time is right. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. In a world where words are often used as weapons, silence can act as a shield, a way to deflect tension and create space for clarity. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Silence in this context isn't about giving up or backing down. It's about exercising control over your reactions and refusing to be drawn into unnecessary conflict. Think about it. When someone tries to provoke you, what happens when you don't engage? The energy they're throwing at you loses its target. Silence can disarm aggression, leaving the other person with nothing to fight against. It's not passive, it's strategic. By choosing not to respond, you're asserting your power, showing that you're above the fray and in control of your emotions. Consider a real-life scenario. Imagine a heated argument at work. Tensions are high, voices are raised, and someone tries to bait you into a reaction. Instead of firing back, you stay quiet. You listen, but you don't retaliate. Over time, the other person's anger begins to fizzle out, and the situation cools down. Your silence didn't just avoid escalation, it commanded respect. It showed that you were the one in control, not your emotions. This isn't just about avoiding conflict, it's about preserving your peace. Silence allows you to step back, assess the situation, and respond, if you choose to, from a place of calm rather than chaos. It's a tool, not a weakness. So, when might you use silence as a tool? Perhaps when faced with criticism that feels unfair, or when someone is trying to provoke you. Reflect on moments in your life where staying silent could have shifted the dynamic. How might it change the way you handle difficult situations in the future? The strength of silence lies not in what you say, but in what you choose not to say. True strength lies in humility, not arrogance. It's easy to assume that influence comes from being the loudest voice in the room or the person who demands the most attention. But the Stoics understood something profound. Real power often resides in the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need to prove themselves. Humility, far from being a weakness, is a cornerstone of silent influence. It's the quality that allows others to trust and respect you, not because you claim authority, but because you embody it. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, put it this way: "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." At first glance, that might sound counterintuitive. Why would anyone want to be seen as foolish? But what Epictetus is pointing to is the freedom that comes with humility. When you're not preoccupied with defending your ego or proving your worth, you create space for genuine connection and growth. Humility opens the door to influence because it shows others that you're more interested in what's right than in being right. Think about the leaders who have left a lasting impact, not the ones who shouted the loudest, but those who led with quiet strength. Take George Washington, for example. After leading the American Revolution, he could have easily clung to power or sought to elevate himself. Instead, he stepped down after 2 terms as president, setting a precedent for peaceful transitions of leadership. His humility didn't diminish his influence, it amplified it. People followed him not because he demanded it, but because they trusted him. Humility also allows us to listen, a skill that's often overlooked in a world that prizes speaking over understanding. When you approach conversations with humility, you signal to others that their perspectives matter. This doesn't mean you abandon your principles or compromise your values. It simply means you're open to learning, to seeing the world through someone else's eyes, and in doing so, you build bridges rather than walls. So here's a question to reflect on. How does humility show up in your life? Do you find yourself striving to prove your worth, or are you comfortable letting your actions speak for themselves? The Stoics remind us that true influence isn't about dominating the room. It's about inspiring others through the quiet strength of your character, and that begins with humility. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it's a practice that transforms relationships. When we express gratitude, we're not only acknowledging the good in others, but also creating a ripple effect of positivity. This silent influence, rooted in Stoic philosophy, has the power to reshape how we connect with those around us. By practicing gratitude, we foster goodwill and build trust, 2 essential ingredients for meaningful relationships. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once said, "He who receives a benefit with gratitude repays the first installment of it." This quote reminds us that gratitude is not passive, it's an active force that strengthens bonds. When we show appreciation, we're not just saying thank you, we're reinforcing the value of the other person's actions. This simple act can shift the dynamic of a relationship, making it more collaborative and harmonious. Take, for example, a manager who consistently acknowledges the hard work of their team. Over time, this practice of gratitude doesn't just boost morale, it creates an environment where people feel seen and valued. The team becomes more engaged, more willing to go the extra mile, and more committed to shared goals. This isn't just theory, it's a tangible outcome of practicing gratitude in everyday life. So, how can you incorporate this into your own life? Start small. Take a moment to reflect on the people who have made a difference for you, even in subtle ways. Maybe it's a friend who always listens, a colleague who supports you, or a family member who shows up when it matters most. How can you express your appreciation in a way that feels genuine and impactful? Gratitude doesn't require grand gestures. It's the quiet, consistent acts of acknowledgement that leave a lasting impression. By making gratitude a habit, you're not just improving your relationships, you're cultivating a mindset that attracts positivity and deepens connections. And in doing so, you're embodying the Stoic principle of focusing on what you can control, your own actions and attitudes. Self-control is the foundation of all Stoic virtues. Without it, even the most well-intentioned actions can unravel, leaving us at the mercy of our impulses. But when we master our desires and emotions, we gain something far more powerful than fleeting satisfaction: respect. Think about it. How often do you admire someone who loses their temper easily or gives in to every whim? Now, consider someone who remains calm under pressure, who chooses their words carefully and acts with purpose. That's the kind of person who commands attention and influence, not through force, but through the quiet strength of self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This simple yet profound idea reminds us that true power lies in our ability to govern ourselves. It's not about controlling the world around us, it's about controlling our reactions to it. When we do this, we become beacons of stability and reliability, qualities that naturally draw others toward us. Take the story of a young entrepreneur who faced relentless criticism in the early days of her business. Instead of lashing out or letting frustration take over, she chose to respond with patience and focus. She worked tirelessly, refining her craft and addressing every challenge with a calm, measured approach. Over time, her self-control earned her the respect of her peers and clients. People began to trust her not just for her skills, but for her unwavering composure. Her influence grew not because she demanded it, but because she embodied the kind of discipline others aspired to. Now, let's bring this closer to home. Where in your life could you exercise more self-control? Is it in how you respond to criticism, or perhaps in resisting distractions that pull you away from your goals? The beauty of self-control is that it's a skill we can always refine. Start small by pausing before reacting, by choosing focus over impulsivity. Each act of discipline, no matter how minor, builds your capacity for silent influence. And as you grow in this practice, you'll find that your ability to lead, inspire, and connect with others grows alongside it. Consistency is the silent force behind lasting influence. It's not about grand gestures or dramatic displays of effort. It's about showing up day after day with the same level of dedication and integrity. When your actions align with your words, and when that alignment happens over time, people begin to trust you implicitly. They see you as someone who doesn't waver, someone who can be relied upon no matter the circumstances, and that's where true influence begins to take root. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." He wasn't just talking about building a legacy or achieving a goal. He was pointing to the power of consistent practice. Think about it. When you're consistent in your efforts, you're not just improving a skill or achieving a result. You're also shaping how others perceive you. Over time, this creates a quiet authority that speaks louder than any words ever could. Take, for example, the story of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher. His reign wasn't marked by flashy conquests or dramatic upheavals. Instead, it was defined by his steady, unwavering commitment to justice, wisdom, and self-discipline. His daily practice of journaling and reflection, now preserved in meditations, wasn't just a personal habit. It was a testament to his consistency in living by his principles. And that consistency, more than anything else, earned him the respect and loyalty of those around him. But this isn't just about historical figures. Think about your own life for a moment. Where do you show up consistently? Is it in your relationships, your work, or your personal growth? And where might you need to strengthen that commitment? Consistency isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. It's about being the kind of person others can count on, even when it's not easy. So, as you move forward, ask yourself this. What's one area of your life where you could build more trust and influence simply by being more consistent? It might be a small change, but over time, those small changes add up to something extraordinary. And that's the power of consistency. It doesn't just shape your character, it shapes the way the world sees you. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, especially in influence. In a world overflowing with noise and complexity, cutting through the clutter with clarity and directness is a rare and powerful skill. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca once said, "It is the sign of a great mind to dislike abundance and to prefer things which are simple rather than lavish." This isn't just about minimalism, it's about achieving impact through precision. When your words are deliberate and your actions purposeful, people listen, trust, and follow. Complexity often breeds confusion, but simplicity creates connection. Think about the most influential figures in history. Many of them achieved greatness not through elaborate strategies, but by distilling their ideas into something everyone could grasp. Take Marcus Aurelius, for example. His writings, though profound, are strikingly simple. He didn't hide his wisdom behind layers of jargon or poetic fluff. Instead, he spoke plainly about virtues like courage, justice, and self-discipline, ideas that resonate across time and culture because they're clear and universally relatable. This principle applies just as powerfully in everyday life. Consider the story of a manager who turned around a struggling team not by introducing complicated plans, but by asking two simple questions: what's working and what's not? By focusing on these basics, the team was able to identify and address their core issues without getting bogged down in unnecessary details. The result: a more cohesive, motivated group that felt heard and understood. So, how can you apply this in your own life? Start by asking yourself, where am I overcomplicating things? Are my messages clear, or do they get lost in layers of explanation? Are my actions aligned with my intentions, or do they come across as scattered and inconsistent? Simplifying doesn't mean dumbing things down. It means cutting away the excess so that what truly matters can shine through. When you embrace simplicity, you not only make your own life easier, but you also become a beacon of clarity for others. And in a world that often feels overwhelming, that kind of influence is priceless. Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. It's a quiet force, one that doesn't demand attention, yet its impact is profound. When you act with integrity, you're not just honoring your own values, you're silently influencing those around you. People notice. They may not always say it, but they see consistency between your words and actions, and that builds trust. Trust, after all, is the foundation of any meaningful relationship, whether personal or professional. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic philosopher, once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good person should be one." This simple yet powerful idea reminds us that integrity isn't about grand gestures or public declarations. It's about the small, everyday choices we make, choosing honesty over convenience, fairness over self-interest, and responsibility over excuses. When you live in alignment with your values, you become a living example of what it means to be trustworthy. And trust, as the Stoics understood, is the cornerstone of influence. Consider the story of a leader who, during a challenging time, faced immense pressure to cut corners to meet a deadline. Instead, they chose to uphold their standards even when it meant delivering late. That decision didn't just earn them respect, it inspired their team to adopt the same level of dedication. Integrity, in this case, wasn't just a personal virtue, it became a ripple effect shaping the culture of an entire group. So, how often do you pause to reflect on your own integrity? Not just in the big moments, but in the small, seemingly insignificant ones. Do you stay true to your principles when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable? These are the moments that define who you are and how others perceive you. Integrity isn't about perfection, it's about consistently striving to align your actions with your values. And when you do, you'll find that your influence grows, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it. Reflection is the mirror through which we see our true selves. It's not just about looking back at what we've done, but about understanding why we did it, our motivations, our fears, and our desires. This practice of turning inward is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, and it's also a powerful tool for silent influence. When we take the time to understand ourselves deeply, we become better equipped to navigate our relationships and interactions with others. Seneca, one of the great Stoic thinkers, once said, "Each day, acquire something that will fortify you against poverty, against death, indeed against other misfortunes as well." Reflection is that daily fortification. It's how we build the mental and emotional clarity needed to act with intention rather than react out of habit or impulse. Take, for example, the story of a young leader named Marcus. Early in his career, Marcus often found himself frustrated in meetings, struggling to get his ideas across. He noticed that his colleagues seemed to dismiss his input even when he felt he was making valid points. Instead of blaming others, Marcus decided to reflect on his own behavior. He asked himself tough questions. Was he truly listening to others? Was he speaking with confidence, or was there a hint of defensiveness in his tone? Through this process, he realized that his frustration was often rooted in his own insecurities. Over time, as he worked on these areas, his demeanor shifted. He became calmer, more composed, and people began to respond to him differently. His silent influence grew because he first took the time to understand and refine himself. This is the essence of silent influence. It's not about forcing others to see your perspective, but about embodying the qualities that naturally inspire respect and trust. And reflection is the key to unlocking that ability. It allows us to identify the gaps between who we are and who we aspire to be, and then take steps to close them. So, how can you start practicing this? Consider setting aside just 5 minutes at the end of each day to reflect. Ask yourself, what went well today? What could I have handled differently? What did I learn about myself? Over time, these small moments of introspection will add up, helping you cultivate the kind of presence that quietly yet powerfully shapes the world around you. Empathy is the bridge that connects us to others. It's not just about feeling what someone else feels. It's about stepping into their world, seeing through their eyes, and understanding their experience. In the realm of silent influence, empathy is one of the most powerful tools we have. Why? Because when we truly understand someone, we create a bond of trust and rapport that words alone can't achieve. The Stoics, often seen as reserved or detached, actually placed great value on empathy. Epictetus once said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. For you will find that you have the same tendencies." In other words, understanding others begins with recognizing our shared humanity. Think about a time when someone truly listened to you, not just to respond, but to understand. How did that make you feel? Valued? Heard? That's the power of empathy in action. Take, for example, a leader who influenced their team not through authority, but by genuinely caring about their struggles and aspirations. By showing empathy, they didn't just earn loyalty, they inspired others to give their best. This kind of influence doesn't come from force or manipulation, it comes from connection. So, how can we practice more empathy in our own lives? Start by slowing down and truly listening. When someone speaks, focus on their words, their tone, and the emotions behind them. Ask yourself, what might they be feeling right now? What's their perspective? And remember, empathy doesn't mean you have to agree with someone. It simply means you're willing to understand them. How might your relationships, your work, or even your sense of self change if you approached others with this mindset? The Stoics remind us that seeing the world through another's eyes isn't just an act of kindness. It's a path to deeper connection and ultimately greater influence. Reacting less often means influencing more. It might sound counterintuitive, but the truth is, staying calm in the face of provocation isn't just a display of self-control, it's a form of silent influence. When you refuse to be drawn into chaos, you send a powerful message that you are in command of your emotions and, by extension, the situation. This isn't about suppressing feelings or ignoring what's happening around you. Instead, it's about choosing how you respond, and in that choice lies your power. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. This idea is at the heart of non-reactivity. It's not that external events don't matter, it's that your response to them matters more. When you remain unshaken, even in the face of conflict or criticism, you demonstrate a kind of quiet authority that others can't help but notice. Think about it this way. Imagine someone trying to provoke you, perhaps with sharp words or a heated argument. If you respond with anger or defensiveness, you've given them exactly what they wanted, a reaction. But if you stay calm, if you listen without lashing out, you shift the dynamic entirely. Now you're the one in control. Your calmness becomes a mirror, reflecting their own agitation back at them, and often that's enough to diffuse the situation entirely. Consider the story of a manager who faced constant challenges from a difficult team member. Instead of engaging in arguments or trying to assert dominance, the manager chose to remain composed, addressing concerns calmly and refusing to take the bait. Over time, the team members' behavior changed not because they were forced to, but because the manager's non-reactivity created a new standard. The team began to follow suit, and the workplace culture improved as a result. This is the power of non-reactivity. It doesn't just influence one person, it can transform entire environments. So, where in your life could you practice this kind of silent influence? Are there moments when you feel the urge to react impulsively, only to regret it later? What would it look like to pause, breathe, and choose a different response? By embracing non-reactivity, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're shaping the way others see you and ultimately the way they act around you. It's a subtle art, but one that can lead to profound results. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. This timeless truth, often attributed to Stoic philosophy, reminds us that true courage isn't about being fearless, it's about acting in spite of fear. When we choose to face challenges head-on, even when our instincts might urge us to retreat, we send a powerful message to those around us. Our actions, rooted in courage, have a silent yet profound influence, inspiring others to step forward and take bold steps in their own lives. Seneca once wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of what it means to embody courage in everyday life. It's not always about grand gestures or heroic feats. Sometimes it's about persevering through difficulties, showing up when it's easier to give up, and choosing integrity over convenience. These seemingly small acts of bravery ripple outward, quietly encouraging others to do the same. Consider the example of a teacher who, despite personal struggles, continues to show up for their students with unwavering dedication. Their commitment doesn't just teach academic lessons, it teaches resilience, perseverance, and the value of showing up even when it's hard. Students who witness this kind of courage are more likely to carry those lessons into their own lives, influencing their peers and communities in turn. Courage then becomes a form of silent leadership. It doesn't demand attention or seek recognition. It simply acts, knowing that its impact will be felt in the actions it inspires. Think about the last time you witnessed someone act with courage. Did it motivate you to do something you might have otherwise avoided? Perhaps it reminded you that fear doesn't have to dictate your choices. So, how can you cultivate this kind of courage in your own life? Start by acknowledging your fears without letting them control you. Reflect on the values that matter most to you and let those guide your actions. Remember, courage isn't about being unafraid, it's about choosing to act in alignment with your principles, even when it's uncomfortable. By doing so, you not only strengthen your own character, but also become a source of quiet inspiration for those around you. Mindfulness is the art of being fully engaged in the present moment. It's about tuning into what's happening right now without distraction or judgment, a skill that aligns perfectly with the Stoic pursuit of silent influence. When you're mindful, you're not just present in body, you're present in spirit, and that presence radiates in every interaction. It's the difference between merely hearing someone and truly listening, between reacting impulsively and responding with intention. Epictetus once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This idea speaks to the heart of mindfulness. It's not about accumulating more, but about focusing on what truly matters. When you strip away the noise of distractions, you gain clarity. You see people, situations, and opportunities for what they are, not what you project onto them. And that clarity is the foundation of influence. Think about a time when you were in a conversation with someone who gave you their full attention. No glancing at their phone, no half-hearted nods, just genuine focus. How did that make you feel? Valued, understood, perhaps even inspired? That's the power of mindfulness in action. It's not about grand gestures or persuasive speeches. It's about the quiet strength of being present. Take the story of a leader who, despite the chaos of a high-stakes meeting, remained calm and attentive. While others were scrambling to assert their opinions, this leader listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and responded with measured insight. Their mindful presence didn't just command respect, it shifted the entire tone of the discussion. People didn't just follow their lead, they trusted it. So how can you bring this into your own life? Start small. The next time you're in a conversation, resist the urge to plan your response while the other person is still speaking. Instead, focus entirely on their words, their tone, even their body language. Notice how this shift changes not just the interaction, but how you feel about it. Mindfulness isn't just a tool for influencing others. It's a way to deepen your own understanding and connection with the world around you. And here's a challenge for you. Try practicing mindfulness in a situation where you'd normally be tempted to multitask or rush through. Whether it's a meeting, a meal, or even a walk, give yourself permission to be fully there. Notice the details, the subtleties, the quiet moments that often go unnoticed. Over time, this practice won't just enhance your ability to influence, it will transform how you experience life itself. Adaptability is the key to thriving in an ever-changing world. It's not just about surviving the unexpected, but about finding strength and opportunity in the midst of it. When we demonstrate flexibility in our approach, we send a powerful message to those around us that we are resilient, open-minded, and capable of navigating uncertainty with grace. This silent influence can inspire others to follow suit, creating a ripple effect of calm and confidence in the face of challenges. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most renowned Stoic philosophers, once said, "The universe is change, our life is what our thoughts make it." This simple yet profound insight reminds us that change is not something to resist but something to embrace. By aligning our mindset with the natural flow of life, we cultivate a sense of inner stability that others can't help but notice. They see someone who doesn't crumble under pressure but instead adapts and grows stronger. Take, for instance, a leader in a rapidly shifting industry. When market trends shift or new technologies emerge, the adaptable leader doesn't panic or cling to outdated methods. Instead, they assess the situation, adjust their strategy, and lead their team forward with clarity and purpose. This kind of adaptability doesn't just solve problems, it earns respect and admiration. People are drawn to those who can handle change with composure, and that admiration often translates into influence. So, how can you become more adaptable in your own life? Start by reflecting on areas where you might resist change. Is it in your daily routines, your relationships, or your career? Notice the moments when you feel the urge to control or fixate on how things should be. Instead, try shifting your perspective. Ask yourself, how can I work with this situation rather than against it? Small steps toward flexibility can lead to profound shifts in how you influence those around you. Adaptability isn't just a skill, it's a mindset. And when you embody it, you become a living example of resilience, quietly inspiring others to embrace change with the same courage and openness. Authenticity is being true to yourself, even when it's difficult. It's not about putting on a mask or trying to impress others, it's about showing up as you are, flaws and all. And here's the thing, when you live authentically, you don't just influence others, you inspire them. Why? Because authenticity builds trust, and trust is the foundation of any meaningful connection. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca once wrote, "What is the fruit of these teachings? The most beautiful and proper, tranquility, fearlessness, and freedom." We should not be afraid of anything, nor should we crave anything, for each man, his own soul is his ruler. In other words, when you live in alignment with your true self, you not only find inner peace, but you also radiate a kind of quiet confidence that others can't help but notice. Think about it, when someone is genuine, it's almost magnetic. You feel drawn to them because they're not hiding behind pretenses or trying to manipulate the situation. They're simply being themselves, and that honesty creates a safe space for others to do the same. Take, for example, the story of Marcus Aurelius, one of history's most famous Stoic leaders. He didn't rule with arrogance or force, he led with humility and integrity. He was unafraid to admit his own mistakes and vulnerabilities, and because of that, he earned the respect and loyalty of his people. His authenticity didn't just make him a great leader, it made him a trusted one. Now, consider how this applies to your own life. When was the last time you showed up fully as yourself without worrying about what others might think? It's not always easy, but the rewards are profound. When you're authentic, you give others permission to be authentic too. You create deeper, more meaningful relationships, whether it's with friends, family, or colleagues. And perhaps most importantly, you influence others not through manipulation or force, but through the quiet power of being real. So, take a moment to reflect. Where in your life could you lean more into your authenticity? Are there areas where you've been holding back, afraid to show your true self? Remember, authenticity isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about embracing who you are, even when it feels vulnerable. And when you do, you'll find that your influence grows not because you're trying to control others, but because they trust you enough to follow your lead. Forgiveness is not about forgetting, it's about freeing yourself. When we hold on to anger or resentment, we carry a weight that only burdens us, not the person who wronged us. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." This isn't just a lofty idea, it's a practical tool for living a freer, more peaceful life. By choosing forgiveness, you release the grip of negativity and create space for clarity and calm. It's a silent act of influence, one that can transform not only your own mindset, but also the way others perceive and interact with you. Think about it this way, when you forgive, you're not excusing someone's behavior or pretending it didn't happen. You're simply choosing not to let that behavior control your emotions or actions. This shift can have a profound ripple effect. For instance, imagine someone who wronged you expecting hostility or avoidance, but instead they're met with calm understanding. That unexpected response can disarm them, opening the door to better communication and even reconciliation. It's a subtle yet powerful way to influence the dynamics of a relationship without saying a word. Take the story of Nelson Mandela, for example. After spending 27 years in prison, he emerged not with bitterness, but with a commitment to forgiveness and reconciliation. His ability to let go of resentment and focus on building a better future for his country inspired millions. It wasn't just his words that moved people, it was the quiet strength he demonstrated through his actions. That's the essence of silent influence, showing others a better way through your own choices. So, who might you need to forgive? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture or even a conversation. Sometimes forgiveness is simply a decision you make within yourself, a choice to stop letting past hurts dictate your present. Reflect on the relationships in your life. Are there grudges you've been holding onto? What might change if you chose to release them? Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you reclaiming your peace and, in doing so, influencing the world around you in ways you might not even see. Curiosity is the spark that ignites understanding. It's not just a trait of the inquisitive, it's a tool of the wise. When you approach conversations with genuine curiosity, you're not just seeking answers, you're building bridges. Think about it. Every question you ask is an invitation for someone to share their perspective, their knowledge, their story. And in that exchange, something remarkable happens. Trust is built, connections deepen, and influence grows naturally without force or manipulation. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus once said, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." This simple yet profound idea reminds us that curiosity is the antidote to arrogance. When we approach life with a mindset of learning, we open ourselves to growth and, in turn, inspire others to do the same. It's a silent form of influence because it doesn't demand attention, it earns it. Take, for example, the story of a young entrepreneur who transformed her company culture simply by asking questions. Instead of dictating solutions, she began every meeting with, "What do you think?" This small shift empowered her team, encouraged collaboration, and led to innovative ideas she never would have uncovered on her own. Her curiosity didn't just solve problems, it inspired her team to think critically and take ownership of their roles. Curiosity isn't just about asking questions, it's about listening deeply to the answers. It's about showing others that their thoughts matter, that their insights are valuable. And when people feel heard, they're more likely to trust and follow your lead. So how can you cultivate this in your own life? Start by approaching every interaction with an open mind. When someone shares an idea, resist the urge to immediately respond or judge. Instead, ask, "What led you to that conclusion?" or "Can you tell me more?" These small acts of curiosity can transform ordinary conversations into opportunities for connection and influence. Reflect on your own interactions this week. Where can you bring more curiosity into your conversations? How might asking one more question change the dynamic of a relationship or a project? The power of curiosity lies in its simplicity. It's a quiet force that can reshape how you engage with the world and, in turn, how the world engages with you. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's the birthplace of connection. At its core, vulnerability is about showing up as you are, imperfections, fears, and all. It's a quiet strength that doesn't demand attention but instead invites others to let their guard down, creating a space for genuine understanding. When you share your struggles openly, you're not admitting defeat, you're demonstrating courage. And that courage, in turn, builds trust and empathy, two essential ingredients for meaningful influence. The Stoics understood this well. Seneca once wrote, "To bear oneself with humility is a sign of strength, not of weakness." He recognized that admitting imperfection isn't a flaw, it's a step toward growth. By embracing vulnerability, you show others that it's okay to be human, to make mistakes, and to learn from them. This openness becomes a silent invitation for others to do the same, fostering deeper connections and mutual respect. Consider the example of a leader who openly shares their challenges during a team meeting. Instead of projecting an image of unshakable confidence, they talk about the obstacles they've faced and the lessons they've learned. This honesty doesn't diminish their authority, it amplifies it. Team members feel seen and understood, which strengthens their loyalty and trust. Vulnerability, in this context, becomes a bridge that brings people together, aligning them toward a common purpose. Now, think about your own life. How can you embrace vulnerability in a way that builds connection? Perhaps it's by sharing a personal story with a friend, admitting a mistake at work, or simply being honest about your feelings. These moments of openness, though they might feel uncomfortable at first, have the power to transform relationships and create lasting influence. Vulnerability isn't about oversharing or seeking sympathy. It's about showing up authentically and allowing others to do the same. So, the next time you find yourself hesitating to reveal a struggle or admit a flaw, remember this: true strength lies in the courage to be vulnerable. It's through this courage that you silently influence others, not by controlling or demanding, but by connecting and inspiring. Generosity is not about giving things, it's about giving of yourself. This simple yet profound idea lies at the heart of silent influence. When you give freely, whether it's your time, attention, or kindness, you create a ripple effect that extends far beyond the act itself. It's not the size of the gift that matters, but the intention behind it. Generosity, in its truest form, is an expression of your values, a way to show others what you stand for without saying a word. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." He wasn't just talking about grand gestures or heroic deeds. He was reminding us that even the smallest acts of generosity can leave a lasting impact. When you give without expecting anything in return, you plant seeds of goodwill that grow in ways you may never see. It's not about recognition or reward. It's about the quiet joy of knowing you've made someone's life a little better. Take, for example, the story of a teacher who spent her weekends tutoring students from underprivileged communities. She didn't do it for praise or acknowledgement. She did it because she believed in their potential. Over time, her generosity inspired those students to pay it forward, creating a cycle of kindness and support that transformed an entire community. Her actions spoke louder than any words ever could, demonstrating the power of selfless giving. So, how can you bring more generosity into your own life? It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Start small. Offer a listening ear to someone in need. Share your knowledge with a colleague, or simply smile at a stranger. The key is to give with no strings attached, to act from a place of genuine care rather than obligation. When you do, you'll find that generosity not only influences others, but also enriches your own life in ways you might not expect. What's one way you can practice generosity today? Think about it. It could be as simple as holding the door for someone, or as meaningful as volunteering your time for a cause you care about. Every act, no matter how small, has the power to create a positive ripple. And in the end, isn't that what silent influence is all about? Persistence is the quiet force behind every great achievement. It's not about grand gestures or loud declarations. It's the steady, unwavering effort that speaks volumes without saying a word. When you persist, you send a powerful message to those around you, a message that says, "This matters." I believe in this enough to keep going, no matter what. And that kind of determination has a way of influencing others, often without them even realizing it. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, once said, "No great thing is created suddenly." This simple yet profound statement reminds us that persistence is not just a virtue, it's a necessity. It's the bridge between where we are and where we want to be. And when others see us crossing that bridge step by step, they can't help but feel inspired to take their own steps forward. Persistence in this way becomes contagious. It creates a ripple effect, quietly encouraging those around us to keep pushing, even when the path feels uncertain. Consider the story of Thomas Edison, who famously failed thousands of times before successfully inventing the electric light bulb. His relentless pursuit of a solution didn't just change the world, it inspired countless others to embrace failure as part of the process. Edison's persistence wasn't just about his own success. It was a testament to the power of not giving up, and it influenced generations of inventors, thinkers, and dreamers to keep going, even when the odds seemed against them. So, what does this mean for you? Think about a goal you've been working toward. Have there been moments when you felt like giving up? What kept you going? Now imagine how your persistence might be influencing those around you. Your family, your friends, your colleagues. Your determination, even in the face of setbacks, could be the very thing that inspires someone else to keep striving for their own dreams. Persistence isn't just about achieving your goals, it's about becoming a living example of what's possible. It's about showing others that progress isn't always fast or easy, but it's always worth it. And in doing so, you quietly become a force of influence, not through words, but through the power of your actions. Clarity is the foundation of effective influence. When your thoughts and actions are clear, they carry a kind of quiet power that others can't help but notice. Imagine standing in a crowded room where everyone is shouting over one another, trying to be heard. Amid all that noise, the person who speaks with calm precision, who knows exactly what they want to say and why, naturally draws attention. This is the essence of silent influence. It's not about being the loudest, but about being the clearest. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca once wrote, "No wind is favorable to the man who has no port of destination." In other words, without clarity of purpose, you're simply drifting, and no amount of effort will take you where you want to go. Clear thinking is like a lighthouse cutting through fog. It guides not only you but also those around you. When your intentions are well defined, your actions become purposeful, and that purpose resonates with others even if you never say a word. Take, for example, the story of a young entrepreneur who wanted to inspire her team to embrace a bold new vision for their company. Instead of delivering a lengthy, passionate speech, she simply outlined her goals with absolute clarity. She explained why the vision mattered, how it aligned with their values, and what steps they would take to achieve it. Her team didn't just follow her because she was their leader, they followed her because they could see the path ahead clearly. Her clarity became their confidence. So how can you bring more clarity into your own life? Start by asking yourself, what do I truly value? What are my goals and why do they matter? When your intentions are clear, your actions will naturally follow suit. And as you move forward with that clarity, you'll find that others are drawn to your sense of purpose. It's not about convincing or persuading, it's about being so clear in your own mind that others can't help but see it too. Acceptance is not resignation, it's the path to inner peace. At its core, acceptance is about understanding what we can and cannot control, a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy. When we stop resisting what's outside our power, we free ourselves from unnecessary struggle and create space for calm and clarity. This isn't about giving up or passively enduring life's challenges. It's about seeing reality clearly and choosing to respond with grace rather than frustration. And here's the powerful twist. This kind of acceptance doesn't just transform us, it subtly influences those around us. Think about it. When we accept what we cannot change, we stop projecting our frustrations onto others. We stop blaming, complaining, or trying to force outcomes. Instead, we radiate a quiet confidence that says, "I'm at peace with this and you can be too." This calm demeanor is contagious. It disarms conflict, builds trust, and invites others to approach life with the same steady mindset. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, put it beautifully. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. In other words, acceptance isn't just about tolerating life's circumstances, it's about embracing them fully, knowing they shape who we become. Let's take a practical example. Imagine a leader facing a team crisis, a project falling apart, deadlines missed, and tensions running high. Instead of lashing out or panicking, this leader chooses to accept the situation as it is. They acknowledge the challenges without blame, focus on solutions, and remain calm under pressure. This quiet acceptance doesn't just stabilize the team, it inspires them to rise above the chaos. The leader's peace becomes a guiding light, showing others how to navigate adversity with poise. Now, here's a question for you. What's something in your life that you've been resisting? Something you wish were different but can't control. Maybe it's a difficult relationship, a career setback, or even an aspect of yourself you've been struggling to accept. Take a moment to reflect on how letting go of that resistance might change not just your mindset, but the energy you bring to those around you. Acceptance isn't about giving up, it's about stepping into a quieter, more powerful way of being. And when we do that, we don't just find peace within ourselves, we become a source of peace for others. Vision is the compass that guides silent influence. It's not just about knowing where you're going, but about inspiring others to see the path alongside you. A clear vision acts like a beacon, cutting through uncertainty and aligning actions toward a shared goal. When you embody this clarity, people naturally gravitate toward it, not because you demand their attention, but because they sense purpose and direction in what you do. This is where silent influence truly shines. It doesn't shout, it attracts. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of vision. It starts with you. You must define your purpose, your why, before you can expect others to follow. When your vision is rooted in authenticity and clarity, it radiates outward, influencing others without the need for force or persuasion. Think of it as planting a seed. You don't need to push it to grow, you simply provide the right conditions: fertile soil, sunlight, and water. Your vision, when nurtured, does the rest. Consider the story of Nelson Mandela. His vision of a free and equal South Africa wasn't just a personal dream, it became a rallying cry for millions. He didn't achieve this by forcing his ideals onto others. Instead, he lived them so fully, so consistently, that others couldn't help but be inspired. His clarity of purpose created a silent yet powerful influence that moved an entire nation. This is the power of a well-defined vision. It transcends words and becomes a force of its own. So, what's your vision? What is the guiding principle that shapes your actions and decisions? Take a moment to reflect on this. A vision doesn't have to be grandiose or world-changing. It just needs to be true to you. Whether it's leading a team, building a community, or simply living a life of integrity, your vision becomes the silent force that shapes not only your path but also the paths of those around you. When you live with purpose, you don't just influence others, you inspire them to find their own. Gratitude in leadership is not just a gesture, it's a strategy. When leaders genuinely acknowledge the efforts of those around them, they don't just foster goodwill, they create a culture of loyalty and motivation. Think about it, when someone feels seen and appreciated, they're far more likely to invest their energy and creativity into the shared vision. This is where the Stoics offer a timeless insight. Seneca once wrote, "He who receives a benefit with gratitude repays the first installment of it." In other words, gratitude isn't just a one-time act, it's a cycle of mutual respect and cooperation that strengthens relationships over time. Consider the story of a CEO who made it a habit to personally thank every team member for their contributions, no matter how small. Over time, this simple practice transformed the workplace. Employees felt valued, morale improved, and productivity soared. Why? Because gratitude, when expressed authentically, signals to others that their work matters. It's a form of silent influence that doesn't demand authority, it earns trust. Now, think about your own leadership style. How often do you take a moment to express gratitude? It doesn't have to be grand or formal. A heartfelt thank you or a note of appreciation can go a long way in building connections and inspiring others. Gratitude isn't just about making people feel good, it's about creating an environment where everyone feels empowered to contribute their best. So, what's one small way you can start weaving gratitude into your leadership approach today? The ripple effects might surprise you. Silent influence, as we've explored, isn't about loud proclamations or grand gestures. It's rooted in something far deeper: presence, detachment, and inner strength. The Stoics teach us that true power lies in our ability to remain calm, centered, and unshaken by the chaos around us. It's about mastering ourselves before we seek to influence others. This is the essence of silent influence, an art that begins within, not through the need for external validation or approval. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. These words capture the heart of what we've discussed. The power to influence others doesn't come from controlling circumstances or people. It comes from mastering your own thoughts, emotions, and reactions. When you cultivate this inner strength, your presence alone becomes a force of influence. People notice the calm, the clarity, the quiet confidence that radiates from someone who is truly self-possessed. So, how can you start practicing the art of silent influence in your own life? Begin by focusing on your own growth. Practice being fully present in your interactions, listening more than speaking, and observing without judgment. Let go of the need to control outcomes or seek validation. Instead, focus on building your inner resilience through daily reflection, mindfulness, and the deliberate practice of Stoic principles. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question to reflect on. How will you embody the art of silent influence in your daily life? What small, intentional steps can you take to cultivate that inner strength and presence? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you plan to apply these ideas. And if you found this discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe for more insights on Stoicism and personal growth. Remember, true influence begins with mastering yourself. The rest